Hi, my name is Dan Benoit.
And I'm Xiaolin Chen. Welcome to this installment of our video blog, Casual is Our New Formal.
In this video, we'll talk about formal constraints. Actually, we started this topic in a previous video about the setup of clocks and resets. Those are forms of constraints because they describe or restrict the behavior of design inputs and possibly the initial values of registers and memories. But now we want to talk about general constraints on input behaviors and how they affect formal property results. So Xiaolin, do we always need constraints?
Well, actually, some design blocks will work properly no matter what stimulus is applied. In that case, no. But for most designs, there are embedded assumptions about how the external behavior, external world should behave. If your design expects input values to be applied in a specific order, they may not like it or will fail if they come in a different order. We must filter out stimulus that violates our design assumptions. If we don't, formal may produce false failures of their properties that are not caused by design bugs, but by illegal behavior of your external environment.
But it can be tedious and maybe even unnecessary to describe all of the constraints for a block. We might be able to prove some properties without any constraints at all. And this suggests a popular constraint development methodology, which is to start checking properties without any constraints and then add constraints as needed to eliminate false property failures. This is a lazy approach to constraint creation that can possibly save effort developing unneeded constraints, but it can increase the time spent debugging false property failures.
That's right. This approach isn't always the best. For example, if you need to check properties that require a specific input protocol, or if your goal is to verify a block exhaustively using formal only, then you will need eventually all the relevant constraints. So in these cases, it would be better to spend the time upfront to model those constraints with formal assumptions. It will be worth the effort to get the constraints clean at the beginning of the project. If you can use pre-written assertions such as library checkers or standard protocol library checkers, that's even better. You should definitely take that shortcut.
Right. One thing to be constantly thinking about is avoiding over-constraint. If the constraints that you write are too restrictive, they could hide some legal stimulus from consideration by the formal engines. This can lead to a proof that is only true because the stimulus needed to expose a bug has been eliminated by the constraints. This is the biggest danger in formal verification because there's no obvious indication that your proof is invalid. So Xiaolin, how can we avoid this problem?
Well, fortunately, there are several techniques you can use to detect over-constraint situations. First, be on the lookout for vacuous proofs. These indicate that some expected behavior described by the property antecedent can never happen. In other words, the if condition in your checker can never be reached. You should definitely investigate this. So, secondly, if you have a system-level simulation environment, all of your formal assumptions should be instantiated there to be checked. If any of those checkers fail during simulation, there is a risk that formal environment is too restrictive. It may invalidate your formal results, and some bugs could escape.
That's absolutely right. But another technique is to run coverage analysis on your formal tool using the assertions that you wrote for property checking. If the coverage analysis shows that some code or states are unreachable, you should investigate to see if the over-constraint might be causing it. VC Formal will also flag conflicting constraints. These are situations where there's no possible stimulus that can simultaneously satisfy all the constraints, and this almost always points to an error in the constraint creation.
That's great, Dan. Sounds like we have several techniques to apply to get clean constraints. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Casual is a New Formal.
See you next time.